Hi, I am Kenneth Kinney, and I am a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Boom, boom, pow. You know what time it is. It's time for another ResultsLeader.fm. And since you're here, I am going to reward you with another amazing interview, because that's what we do here at Results Leader. We bring you amazing interviews. Now, today's guy is going to talk about fear and breaking through your fear and using your fear to grow. Mr. Kenneth Shark Kinney is our guest today. He's a keynote speaker. He's a marketer. And most importantly, he's a fun guy to talk to. So let's jump into the show. Kenneth, welcome to the show. What is up, brother?
Doing well. Excited to be here.
Well, I am glad you're here. And we are going to fire off the first question for you. What book or books have you given most as a gift?
Most as a gift, probably in business and to business friends. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, will be one that for everything that I think about tactically that, we read about in marketing and advertising and everything else. It's one of those books that has more than stood the test of time that you can give to somebody, whether they're working in whatever field of business or life. It's just an amazing way to look at human behavior and the good ways to help people in what they do so that they can also help you.
Excellent. How did you first hear about that book?
Friend gave it to me. I think I was having some issues and needed some humility. And when that person presented me that book as a gift, it just really floored me. And I'd been a reader, but I had not touched a book that was decades and decades and decades like that old. And it was, again, something I've read probably a dozen times.
So you said it floored you. What was one thing that you can remember that really got your attention from that book?
Just how much you can get by serving others instead of just serving yourself. One of the basic quotes that he has in there that I love is to be interesting, be interested. And it just helps take that focus off of the person in the mirror all the time, which is part of the problems we have today somewhat in society. And so I think it just shows instead of saying the word empathy, it's showing people that empathy, so it can be applied in 1,000 different ways. But really just showing interest in other people can serve you a lot better in a lot of different ways than just worrying about yourself all the time.
Absolutely. And what I am interested now is in you telling me a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Probably the biggest ones that I can remember revolve around, and it was part of the Dale Carnegie story with reading that book, is I at one time managed a pretty large team in the hundreds and, had sort of a real, almost a come to Jesus type meeting, if you will, where I learned some of my own failures in management. I'm very, very type A. Most of my friends tell me I'm one of the most type A people they're ever going to meet. I've got to stand up to do this interview, and I'm just trying to make certain that I don't try to control it, also having my own podcast. However, when I do that, when you're type A and you're really pushing people very heavily, you can push them too far. And that's what I had done in the past. And so that helped me so much, though, take, again, a little bit of humility and just how to get more out of people, realizing the failures that I was doing and serving them as employees helped me become a much better manager. There are some wonderful liberties if you don't manage people, though, and that helps you free up a lot. But to be honest, I think every great manager has failed with people to some degree and then learn from it. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that they've failed, or they're too I don't know if arrogance is necessarily the right word, but if they're not self-aware of how important their people's concerns can be, it can really change the dynamic with all kinds of things inside of an organization and what you can get out of people if you treat them better.
Seems like common sense, but yeah, man, I'm with you there. So let's talk about investments. And what I'd like to know is what is the most worthwhile investment you have ever made?
Uh, Probably in my own family. I mean, the last several years, I think, has probably been the most thing. Everything that I've done, I've consider myself a subject matter learner, not a subject matter expert. I try to always remember that I'm constantly learning, and I've learned a fair amount about my trade, as we all do. But what I've found that how that's paid back for me is, although I was at a pretty steady pace speaking at conferences and getting paid to speak and all those things, and it can feed your ego. We all have a little bit of an ego when we speak. But really, when I ran through seeing my parents get sick and helping take care of them and pass away and realizing how short our time is on this planet, it made me double or triple down on the investment I was making in my own family. And, sometimes you don't get that time back with ones you love when they leave. We've all experienced that, obviously, through the pandemic. I've lost family members to COVID as well. But really realizing how important it is to be grounded and spend that time, invest in your family if you have that opportunity. It can really pay off so many other dividends that can apply in your business life.
That is beautiful. That's a beautiful thought and a beautiful idea. And I appreciate you bringing that to the show. So let's think back over the last 5 years. And I want you to tell me what belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life.
So this is one that I will say has probably gone on my entire number of years. I won't say how many they were, but it's way beyond five. But it's really having a little bit of what I'll call kind of a lack of fear. My nickname is Shark, and it's because I've been swimming with sharks actively. I often go close to your part of the world, out to East Florida or into the Caribbean, and I swim with sharks. I've been doing that since I was a little kid. A lot of people would run away on the weekends when they were kids and go get in trouble. I would run to the beach, and it's something I still do. But what it also helps teach you a lot is how to deal with fear. And I've watched, especially over the last several years, the decisions people make that are driven by fear that they apply, whether it's in life or in business. And when you swim with sharks, which is a mortal fear to most people, people still tell me all the time, because I'm nicknamed Shark, that Jaws was the scariest movie they've ever seen. And I've swam with great whites in the wild without a cage. And I think, no, this is not the same thing you see in the movies. They're apex predators and they have to be respected. But, and I'm not somebody that's out there, running around with a Cheetos and some barbecue and the Cheetos sitting in the water waiting, trying to attract sharks over because I think I'm tough and cool. But it helps you learn about yourself to respect, be self-aware, not deal with fear the way a lot of people do. And so that has helped me tremendously deal with a lot of decisions that I see people so impacted by fear, and how it keeps them from really achieving what they need to achieve for a lot of different reasons, whether it's business or life.
Man, that is powerful. That is powerful. The
Well, I'm
guy
going to
is
take you
running
diving.
towards fear.
I'm going to take you diving on one of these trips one day. So
I'm okay. I'm going to stay on dry land. I'll take your word for it. So tell me this, Kenneth, what are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
well, if you've been on Clubhouse for 5 minutes, you'll hear a lot of them, because everybody on there is a so-called expert. But I think one of the things, especially in the marketing and advertising world, that I find is that so much is centered on me. I'm great. Look at me. Look at my brand. Those kind of thoughts, that very self-centered advice is bad. A lot of the tips and tricks that are given all the time are very me-centered, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're a solopreneur trying to, grow your brand. But one of the biggest complaints people have about B2C or even B2B brands is that focus that's on the brand and the logo, and that's, it doesn't matter if you're small or large business. When the focus is on the customer, though, who you're serving, that makes a tremendous impact on whether or not they're going to spend their dollars on you. And that's been very reflected over the last several years, how people are making that shift. And so a lot of people sell, sell, sell. And what they should be doing more often is selling through education, because it's a lot more of a pull, if you will, rather than just a push that people have been accustomed to. So really a lot of that advice that's focused only on themselves as opposed to the customers they serve is bad. And I'll give you one more. A lot of people, especially when you think of some of those same people that speak, the channel strategies. You hear all the time how people focus on um, Twitter or Facebook or Google search or whatever it is. And you've got very siloed teams that may be internal at a company or with external agencies who have that. And so for a lot of brands and a lot of solopreneurs as well, they have a real problem stitching that together for what the customer sees. The customer is not spending time at their homes. They're not sitting there imagining, can we be in endless meetings from 9 to 5 all day? They're not contacting your third-party SEO agency or your customer service team. They are taking a look at your brand, and within a very short amount of time through some basic research, they're seeing if it'll help them fix their problem. So when so much of the channel strategy is heard on, here's, the top 10 Instagram tips for how to, drive acquisition or whatever it is. It's just having worked on the brand side and on the agency side and on the publisher side and on the consulting side and having been a solopreneur and entrepreneur, it's a lot easier for me as someone, especially as I do it in the water as well, think of myself as a friend of the sharks. You have to be aware of your environment, and not enough people are, because they get so narrowly focused on what that channel is. And your customer sees, they see your entire brand. They're not breaking down those silos for you.
We didn't talk about this, I don't think, the last time, but how much time are you spending on Clubhouse, man?
Well, not that much anymore, but I've heard quite a few people that are spending. I heard one influencer that I know in the marketing and advertising space, and it shocked me, said he was spending 35 hours a week. And I thought, oh my God, I've maybe spent an hour and a half last week. And I have a couple of friends who have big followings, and every time I'm on there, they are on there. It is I almost want to rename the app in their names, because they are on there all the time. So
that they're trying to get their picture as a little thumbnail, I think. All right, I know you were getting into that, and we were just about to get into my favorite part where we talk about results. But first, I want to ask you a question. Are you picking up what we're laying down on this show? Are you digging what we are sharing? If you are, why not make yourself a hero today and share this with somebody who can use it? Put this out on your social media channels. #ResultsLeaderFM. I'll be out there looking for you, and I'll make sure to boost it up too when I see you. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump back into the interview. Cool, man. It's funny because I think the same way is, and we didn't talk about this in the pre-interview, but I think of this podcast as the antidote to thought leadership. So it's just funny that you bring that up. And that's one of the reasons why I invited you here, because I know you're a results leader. And I want to know, in your opinion, why do results matter?
Well, look, if I'm going to make, especially in 2021, I know we'll keep this evergreen, but if you specifically think of us coming out of a pandemic, your investments that you're making, whether you are a solopreneur or a large business, are going to be more than ever need to drive results for your customers so that they're going to invest in you. 2020 showed us that people were switching brands at an amazing pace. And that doesn't matter if you're a large company or if you're a solopreneur coach. When you can't develop any stickiness to providing an amazing experience for customers so that they're going to stay with you, they're going to leave. And so investing in that to drive results, not just at the cost of a lead or a sale, because I talk about lead gen all the time, but really looking at the lifetime value and looking at it more. And I wish more smaller businesses did that, was spend more time looking at lifetime value rather than just cost to lead or cost per sale. Because when you take it from that context, it's a much better, clearer math structure. And it's a much better revenue structure for you to make long-term results.
Yeah, man. Nobody's talked about that yet on here. So I'm glad you brought that. It's the long-term customer value and getting them to stick around. Nobody thinks about that. You're right. It's too narrowly focused on what am I getting leads for. But that's one of the things that we live by here is like, how do we make a lifelong relationship with the people we serve?
Well, I was just going to say it's the difference between thinking about a quarter and what sales you're going to achieve. And I get it when you're trying to achieve sales within a 90-day window to meet your numbers. That's one thing, or to basically keep the lights on. That's incredibly important. But if you want to keep the lights on for years and years, it's that kind of shift you've got to make.
We're thinking more than keeping the lights on. We want to thrive, baby. So in the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
One of the biggest things that has done more for clients and for me is being able to stitch together that journey that includes, and if you think about it just from a marketing standpoint, stitching together content, stitching together ads, having your third-party teams interact more interactively together, having them work more with your internal teams, having an advertisement that you run on Facebook, for example. If you're going to drive a lead for that, then you've got to understand that it doesn't matter how pretty the picture is, that's going to get somebody to click on it, whether it's some sort of Google ad or a display ad. But really, when they run through the process, when it gets to the call center, and those people are taking the calls, if they are, a lot of stories will start out with ABC, and then by the time it gets to the call center, it's rubber baby buggy bumper. And it happens all the time, and it confuses buyers. And this is not only with large corporations, this is with small. And a phrase that I use all the time, and it was the book that I was going to publish earlier, is called The Confused Buyer Always Says No. And if you can learn how to stitch all these things together and really think of it from a more holistic 30,000 view standpoint, you've got to be able to dive in and understand a channel from a 10,000 foot viewpoint. But if you're not able to do it from a larger scale to really understand the way the customer sees you and how they interact with you, whether it's on a web page or whether it's on, dealing with a call center, it can really be detrimental to the experience. I'll give you an example I had just today. I purchased a car. I'm picking it up. They called me. Two different people called me. Didn't even know that they were both calling me at the same time, left me a voicemail. And what I absolutely loved was they could have just sent an email because they first wanted to interact e-commerce wise just via email. The next thing that happens, they didn't send me a congratulatory email saying, congratulations, you've got the car. They signed me up for their newsletter, which is pitching a bunch of other cars. And if you think about it that way, it's so bad the way that all of this gets, and that's maybe not the greatest example, but it's so bad the way that all of these things work together. And and a lot of companies just don't know that some of the automation, some of the silos they've created between teams is causing major, major problems for customers. And they know it. They just don't really admit it to themselves and then go deal with it, because it's a lot easier to go start a quick solution than it is to fix a more important, bigger problem.
Let's turn this inward for a second. What area of your business would you like better results?
The biggest one that I probably somewhat suffer from as well is promoting myself a little bit more. So as somebody that works also as a professional speaker, listen, to today's noisy world, if you're not out there creating more noise about yourself, whether it's the podcast we host or anything else, me speaking on stage like I did just a few weeks ago in Orlando, if you're not telling the world a little bit more about that, it's harder to really cut through. And it's some of it is, the Gary Vaynerchuk always on posting all the time. There's a lot of people that listen to that and have created so much content. It's a lot of noise. It is like trying to decipher the old TVs that had static television on them, and you're trying to just cut through and be the one picture that they see. And that is you've got to be a little bit louder, a little bit more unique, a little bit more different. And so forcing myself into promoting myself more is sometimes, to be honest, a little bit tough.
Have you tried Clubhouse?
Yeah. Yeah, where everybody's an expert. Once you get an invite, it's an exclusive club.
No, it's an inclusive club. Everybody's an expert.
Everybody, that's true. That's very, very true. Yeah. It's been very interesting. I've only been on a couple of months, but it's it's very interesting. All the things I've been sold. It always amazes me too, how many people are millionaires on there. They made tens of millions of dollars, yet they want to sell me this, $795 coaching deal
Yikes.
for 2 weeks. And it's I don't know, if I had tens of millions of dollars, I would be on in my beach house, not sitting on Clubhouse
all day. So what results are you most proud of?
I would say, really, to be honest, it's the mindset that I've shifted more towards delivering results while being focused on customers. And I will tell you that this is something I navigate through all the time, whether I'm working for the agency that I work for, interacting with other agencies, having just been on the brand side, working with dozens of agencies. And it amazed me how many dozens of internal teams were just good intentioned, but not always very aligned on serving the customer the right way. Not that they were serving them incorrectly. It was because they were focused on doing their siloed task rather than serving the customer. And sometimes, they've got to get their tasks done, but really understanding that piece and how that's going to benefit the customer can help you do your job a different way.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Looking at the bigger picture, like you said, the 30,000 foot view, how does this all fit together? Being intentional. I dig it, man. So, any parting thoughts as we're wrapping up?
I would encourage people to be less afraid of their decision-making process. The worst thing that can happen is you learn in most of what you're doing. But I think still there's so many people that are really pandemic affected as well. They're really affected by fear and how that's holding them back. And so, for me, it's something I do on the weekends as a passion project, and that's helped me take that mindset since I was a little kid, and what I did in martial arts and things like that. All of that has sort of helped me prepare to deal with things in a different way. And it doesn't make me bulletproof. I'm not trying to say that I'm not, but it has helped me in a way that I did not think that it necessarily would, which is just to be more confident, understand my faith better in God, and understand, how much more I needed in my family and how much more I could do to serve others instead of just only focusing on myself, which was always a lesson that we all have to learn.
Yes, sir. So I know after listening to this interview, our people are going to want to find the shark. Where can they find you?
Well, if not in the ocean, somewhere in all likelihood in the Atlantic, they can find me at my website or on LinkedIn. My website's asharksperspective.com. That shark is my nickname. And then on LinkedIn, I am probably one of the few Kenneys you'll find. But if you Google Kenneth, Shark, and Kinney, there's a pretty good chance you'll find me.
That's it. And of course, we will share links in the show notes so that people can find their way to you. Thank you, Kenneth, for being on the show. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another episode. And we will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.